Discover the amazing and transformative truth behind 5,000 years of human civilization. You won't believe what I found. Mary Thompson stared at the faded old journals in her hands, the weight of her grandfather's words pressing against her chest. Each entry, filled with thoughts that seemed to echo the struggles of countless generations, swirled within her like a tempest. But as a 38-year-old history teacher in a small Midwestern town, why did she feel so utterly invisible? Her students thrived under her care. They flourished in a landscape of ideas and history she lovingly crafted. But here she was, avoiding her own ambition. The dream of completing her doctorate, the low-hanging fruit she never picked. Wasn't it time she stopped prioritizing everyone else's needs over her own? As she rummaged through the attic, the dust motes danced around her, exposing memories and regrets long hidden. She could feel anxiety curling in her stomach. There were countless distractions clamoring for her attention, grading papers, preparing lectures, being the encouraging voice for kids who needed a lifeline. Then there were the whispers at the back of her mind. You can't possibly consider pursuing a doctorate. That's too ambitious for someone like you, just a high school teacher. Her heart raced at the thought of applying for that prestigious fellowship, the one that could finally validate her life's work. The journals, rich with lessons of sacrifice and resilience, stirred a dying ember of ambition inside her. But how could she, a woman molded by the small confines of a homogenized town, even dare to reach for it? Wasn't it easier to remain played small? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. That night, she sat on the edge of her bed, surrounded by open books and scattered notes, each a representation of the turmoil running through her veins. Tension coiled invisibly around her thoughts as she faced her inner demons with a trembling resolve. Each depressing thought crescendoed as she uncovered the long-buried shame of her grandfather's contributions in academia, so blatantly disregarded due to systemic biases. The weight of that injustice felt like chains around her legs, pulling her deeper into a sea of despair and determination. If her grandfather could fight through barriers, how was she content to let hers remain unchallenged? The deadline loomed closer, but instead of clarity, she felt suffocated by that same unacknowledged legacy. Each day bled into the next as she wrestled with wanting not just validation, but a voice. Worthy of her family's history, a voice capable of unearthing truths that had been held in silence. Her mentorship with the renowned professor ignited glimmers of hope, yet doubt stalked her every step as she prepared to submit her application. The tension swelled within her, a chaotic dance of fear and resolve. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror, searching for a flicker of confidence that had long evaded her grasp. She felt like a ship tossed on a relentless sea, caught between the desire to break the glass ceiling and the need to honor the truth of her ancestors' pain. Each heartbeat was a reminder of the raw energy locked within her, a scorching life waiting to break free. As she lifted her pen, poised to finally commit her ambitions to paper, a wave of anguish rolled through her, the past and present colliding in an explosion of aspirations unrealized. Could she push through the weight of conflicting loyalties to earn the recognition she yearned for? The answer felt maddeningly elusive, leaving her teetering on the edge of despair and possibility, caught in the delicate balance of legacy and identity. Mary stared at the blank page before her, the ink of her pen poised precariously above the surface. There was a restlessness in her hands, as if the very fiber of her being was trying to relay a message of its own. She closed her eyes for a moment, inviting the cacophony of thoughts to settle, yearning for clarity. In the silence, memories of her grandfather's unfulfilled dreams flooded back. Echoes of a man who had strived against all odds, only to be dismissed. The shadows of her past whispered doubts, but now they carried a new weight, admonitions of complacency. This wasn't just about her anymore. It felt as though she was carrying a torch lit by generations who sought knowledge and respect. With determination brewing in her chest, Mary pushed the remnants of her doubt aside, breathing deeply as she finally began to write. Her pen glided smoothly over the paper, forming phrases that mirrored her darkest fears and fiercest hopes. She penned about her desire to break the mold, and every word felt like a rebellious act against the expectations that had long tethered her. A newfound sense of purpose kindled within her, but every sentence bore the weight of her hesitation. Was she truly ready to step into the realm of academia, to claim a place she had always reserved for others? That sleepless night morphed into dawn, and with it came the growing resolve to push through the whirlwind of self-doubt. She recalled her mentor's words, spoken during moments of reflection. "The world is waiting for your unique perspective, Mary. Don't shy away from sharing it." How ironic that advice now danced mockingly in her mind as she faced the true challenge, her own reflection, which often felt like a stranger. Days passed in a blur of momentum mixed with trepidation. The looming deadline became a double-edged sword. Anxiety spurred her to stay awake through the night to complete her application, but it also haunted every waking moment, an ever-present reminder of what lay at stake. With every draft, she felt herself peeling away layers of pretense, exposing the raw and revealing essence of her ambition. A bold determination replaced the familiar pull towards retreat. In her mind, she could hear her students' laughter, a group of bright minds eager to absorb and explore. And she realized they had become part of her motivation, propelling her to be a better version of herself. They deserved a teacher who could inspire them, not just with history's curriculum, but with a narrative of personal triumph. Mary submitted her application with trembling hands, every keystroke catapulting her into unknown territory. Yet relief was fleeting. It was replaced by a different sort of anxiety, as though she were balancing on the edge of a cliff. What if her application wasn't good enough? What if she failed to capture everything she aspired to be? Despite this turmoil, she found herself reflecting more deeply on her qualifications. In conversations with those around her, she unearthed hidden strengths she had long dismissed. Her ability to connect with students, her affinity for critical thinking, her passion for storytelling, all were powerful tools waiting to be utilized in her academic journey. Each self-revelation fortified her belief that perhaps she wasn't just an ordinary high school teacher, but a vessel for untold stories begging to be shared. Yet, as the days passed, Mary learned about the implications of empty hopes. What was she prepared to sacrifice for this career path? Relationships? Peace of mind? Time? These questions shadowed her resolve like a dark specter, each one an invitation to consider her limits. Standing on the precipice of her aspirations, Mary realized she had to confront the unspoken shame, not just of her grandfather, but of other ancestors who craved acknowledgement. It was time to dismantle the barriers they faced, and in the process, unlock her own potential. Determined, she took a moment to gather her thoughts. The next step would require confrontation, a face-off with the very voices that told her she didn't belong. It was time to embrace both the fear and the ambition that wrapped around her like a storm. Clenching her fists, she made a decision. She would step into the fray, not just for herself, but to honor the legacy of those who battled before her. No longer would she be a mere bystander in her own life. The moment had come to face the demons of her doubts head-on, and for the first time, she felt sparks of genuine excitement. What might lie on the other side of this confrontation? Mary woke the next morning, the sun filtering through her curtains like a spotlight, illuminating the uncertainty that lingered within. She felt unsettled, her heart racing with anticipation. The application was submitted, but as the day unfolded, her restlessness morphed into an electric tension, thrumming through her veins. She needed to channel this energy into something tangible. After a quick breakfast, she gathered a few personal items: her grandfather's worn notebook, a picture of her most inspiring students, and a weathered book about teaching philosophies that had shaped her perspective. Each piece evoked stories and lessons, promises of strength, and a reminder of the legacy she was determined to uphold. Later that morning, she made her way to school, each step heavy with the weight of possibility. The hallways felt different. They were saturated with voices of laughter and learning, mingling with her own nerves. As she entered her classroom, she was greeted by the familiar sights: the stacked chairs, the chalkboards filled with past lessons, and the inspiring quotes hanging on the walls. It was a sanctuary of sorts, but also a battleground for her thoughts. She realized that these walls held echoes of her past, both triumphant and tumultuous. In the quiet moments between classes, Mary found herself reflecting on her motivations with an intensity that surprised her. What would it mean to embrace she who truly was? Would it mean standing up against naysayers, or perhaps confronting her own internalized fears? Deeper down, she worried if she would truly measure up in the realm of academia, where competition thrived and validation often felt elusive. As students trickled in, Mary forcibly redirected her focus. Today, she decided to challenge them to think critically about their own goals and aspirations. Encouraging them to share their future ambitions ignited a spark in the room, and she promptly realized that their energy washed over her like a soothing balm. For every story they shared, pieces of her own narrative emerged, transforming the classroom into a crucible where vulnerabilities and dreams intermingled. In a moment of clarity, Mary shared her own fears about pursuing a career in higher education, how the walls of doubt had closed in around her, as if to remind her that her worth was tied to past failures. But sometimes, she continued, you must leap into the unknown, trusting that your journey will shape you. Your dreams deserve pursuit, regardless of how out of reach they seem. The students listened attentively, nodding, as if the collective understanding submerged them in an atmosphere of camaraderie. They began sharing their apprehensive journeys, a student unsure about applying to art school, another terrified of public speaking. In that moment, each revelation within her classroom transformed Mary, sparking reflections on resilience. Maybe courage is not the absence of fear, but simply embracing it to fight through. With their insightful discussions circulating, she noticed how her initial worries melted away, replaced by an emergent fire within. It wasn't just her journey anymore. It was a shared experience, a reminder that growth thrives on vulnerability. For perhaps the first time, she considered how teaching and learning were mutual processes. Her students inspired her just as she hoped to inspire them. As the final bell rang, a sense of hope settled over the classroom. She had given her students something solid, a glimpse into the importance of daring to dream, no matter where that dream originated. With renewed determination, Mary headed home with plans to dive deeper into her research on educational practices. The confrontation with her fears had catalyzed a transformation, not with the force of a declaration, but through the interaction with her students. Yet, even as she reveled in this small victory, a shadow lurked in the background, one that whispered reminders of competition awaiting her within the academic world. How would she measure up against those seasoned scholars? The stakes had been raised, and with them crept an unsettling query, lingering like an uninvited guest. Was she truly ready for what lay ahead? As she settled down to work that evening, Mary knew she would need every ounce of courage, stamina, and resilience she could muster in the days to come. And just as she tucked another page of notes into her growing stack, a ping from her laptop interrupted her thoughts. A new email had arrived. With a pounding heart, she clicked to open it. Could it be an update on the status of her application? Would it reignite the flames of her ambition or snuff them out? Mary's breath hitched as she opened the email, her eyes scanning the sender's name and the subject line. It was from the admissions committee. Her heart raced both in anticipation and dread. Clicking it open, she steeled herself against the onslaught of emotions that threatened to spill over. This was it. Her dreams hinged on the words that lay within. "Dear Mary," it began, and she felt her pulse quicken. The acknowledgement felt both exciting and ominous. The words unfolded before her like a script of fate. "We appreciate your application and the passion reflected in your essay. However," her stomach sank. She braced herself for the impact of rejection, willing herself not to react, but the weight of that word cast a shadow, overshadowing her earlier resolve. Instead of closing the laptop in despair, Mary forced herself to read on. "We were impressed by your unique insights into student empowerment." There it was, a glimmer of hope amidst the gloom. The committee expressed interest in her teaching philosophy, inviting her to present her innovative ideas in a virtual interview. As she read through the details, clarity sliced through her earlier doubts. This was her chance to delve deeper into her beliefs, a platform to articulate the dreams she had ignited in her students' hearts. Yet the same excitement flickered with anxiety. Was she ready for this? Her mind flashed back to the moments of vulnerability she had bravely shared with her students. They had gained strength through her humility, exchanged fearful whispers for empowering encouragement. But what of her own fears? Standing up before seasoned academics, would she still feel that sense of camaraderie, or would it transform into a bitter landscape of comparison and doubt? If she accepted the invitation, was vying for a place among those she revered. In the stark light of professional scrutiny, would her passion still shine, or would it fall victim to the very competition that haunted her thoughts? Determination took root, surging through her. She remembered the warmth of her classroom, the way she had transformed as her students painted their aspirations with words. Students had found solace and strength in her honesty. Perhaps, she reasoned, this interview could be another opportunity to showcase the same authenticity, to highlight the resilience she sought to instill in her classroom, despite the fear that accompanied it. Mary grabbed her worn notebook, ready to draft her ideas. This interview could ripple beyond her own aspirations, inspiring others to embrace their authenticity, just as she had encouraged her students. Tightening her grip, she began to outline her vision. The words began to flow, spilling onto the pages as she outlined her pioneering educational methods and her vision for transformative learning. With every point she penned down, she felt more grounded, her confidence wavering but gradually solidifying. As the hours slipped away and night masked the world outside her window, a sense of urgency propelled her forward. This was not just an interview, this was a glimpse of the teacher she aspired to be. Yet, even as she prepared, shadows loomed. A nagging fear gnawed at her, preying on the what-ifs. Did she truly have the skill to stand against her peers? Did her ideas have merit? But she also felt something new. Clarity was emerging. She wasn't just fighting for her place in academia. She was fighting for her voice to be heard, for every student whose potential had dimmed under the weight of doubt. Her existence as a teacher was a declaration of belief not only in her abilities, but in the transformative power of education. With her laptop now eliminated, she began to curate her thoughts for the presentation, knowing that this was only the first step into a broader dialogue. There would be challenges ahead, allies to seek out, and perhaps even adversaries to confront. And just as she penned down her concluding thoughts, a new email notification chimed from her laptop. Curiosity mixed with trepidation. Could this be an unexpected critique from the committee, or perhaps a further invitation? Determined, she glanced at the screen, ready for whatever revelation awaited her, knowing that every email and every challenge was another step forward in her evolving path. Mary's heart drummed loudly in her chest as she stared at the new email notification. A mix of uncertainty and anticipation washed over her. Was this a validation of her efforts or another hurdle to navigate? She inhaled deeply, steeling herself. With a swift motion, she clicked on the message, her pulse racing with each passing moment. As she read, her stomach twisted in a way that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. It was from a prominent educational journal, inviting her to contribute an article on innovation in teaching. "We believe your recent insights on student empowerment would resonate with our readers," it stated. The words swirled around her, mocking her disbelief. This was unexpected, but precisely the kind of opportunity she needed to ignite her professional identity. The offer was intoxicating, a chance to share her experiences on a wider platform. Yet doubt crept in again like a shadow. How could she write an impactful article when her own teaching often felt mere iterations of what she had learned? Could she truly articulate her philosophy with enough depth and clarity to carry authority? She instinctively began pacing her small living room, thoughts bouncing around like flitting moths. Pioneering educators needed to challenge convention, and yet she still felt tethered to preconceived notions, ideas that danced in her mind but never quite took flight on the page. The challenge of discussing her innovative ideas became a source of stress rather than inspiration. Mary swung back to her notebook, flipping through the dog-eared pages filled with scrawled anecdotes and reflections. A glimmer of realization broke through. The conversations she had fostered in her classroom were notes of genius, moments of vulnerability, not just for herself, but for the many lives she had touched. Her students' journeys were laden with resilience. Her task was to map that resilience onto her own narrative. With renewed focus, she turned her laptop back on, ready to draft her article. The structure she imagined wasn't merely about techniques or methods. It needed to resonate with authenticity. She decided to weave her personal experiences with broader implications, uniting her voice with those of her students. She scribbled down a rough outline with ardent strokes, each point fueled by longing to create a genuine impact. In the midst of drafting, thoughts of the upcoming interview for her prospective program loomed like an impending storm cloud. They intertwined. She would need to speak to a committee in the days ahead about educational innovation, yet her thoughts were now consumed by this invitation to write. Distraction hovered dangerously close, a reminder of the blurred lines she was trying to navigate. Could she really do both? Nevertheless, she embraced the tension. This wasn't merely about her aspirations, it was about instilling purpose in each endeavor. Knowing she had a potential article simmering on the back burner kept her grounded. The frustration of the unknown would fuel her preparation for a discussion she was still anxious about. As she meticulously crafted her article, each word became a brushstroke, revealing her advocacy for student empowerment and transformation. But shadows flickered at the edges of her burgeoning confidence. Would the committee take her seriously? Did she have the gravitas to be seen as an authority in her field? The nagging doubts wrestled against her ambition as the night wore on. The clock's hands moved quickly, yet time seemed like a mercurial dance, pulling her between exhilaration and fear. But just as she reached the core of her argument, her laptop chimed again, this time with a message from one of her former colleagues who was now pursuing a parallel journey. It was an inquiry about a joint project focused on educational equity, their own ambition flaring to life in tandem. The invitation to collaborate sparked intrigue but also fear. Could she share this spotlight? As she reread the message, her mind buzzed with questions. Was she ready to step into this newfound realm of opportunity? The prospect of joining forces felt daunting yet invigorating. Tension gripped her as she placed her hands over the keyboard, ready to respond, knowing that every choice she made could shape her path forward. One email could ignite a journey that intertwined with her aspirations for academia. The moment had come to decide. Would she embrace collaboration and expand her horizon, or would she retreat into her fears and stay confined? With a deep breath, Mary's fingers hovered over the keyboard. The message from her former colleague pulsated with potential, an opportunity tainted with uncertainty. Could she bear the weight of collaboration? The thought of sharing authorship ignited disparate emotions. Excitement wrestled with anxiety. Ambition tangled with self-doubt. She could visualize their combined expertise producing something greater than the sum of their parts, yet the instinct to guard her ideas flooded her mind. What if her voice was drowned out? Could she balance her personal vision while making room for another? The enormity of her aspirations pressed down like a tangible force, prompting a surge of energy that drove her to engage. Mary drafted a response, each word carefully measured as she expressed her interest while establishing her own parameters. The digital pulse of her heartbeat mirrored the rhythm of her typing, creating a cadence that filled the silence of her living room. As the email lands in the abyss of the internet, she leaned back, contemplating her choices. Would her contributions resonate within this project? Could she deftly maneuver through discussions and conflicts, all while championing her deep commitment to student empowerment? Instead of stoking fears, she acknowledged the potential for growth, a chance to stretch beyond her comfort zone. The anticipation settled like a weight in her chest as she returned to her article. She reflected on her classroom experiences, the trials and tribulations that had shaped her commitment to innovation. Each jot down on the page became an act of defiance against self-doubt. Ideas began to materialize, not just as professional milestones, but as intrinsic elements of her identity. Yet the specter of her upcoming interview loomed larger. As her mind oscillated between drafting and rehearsing responses for the committee, anxiety tightened its grasp. What if her innovative philosophy wasn't strong enough to gain their approval? What if she couldn't articulate her vision with clarity and passion? The trickle of doubt transformed into a waterfall, and in that moment a realization emerged. She could not separate her writing from this interview. Both endeavored to consolidate her emergence as an innovator. The tension unraveled, shifting into clarity. She needed to use the same stories, the same vigor, while presenting herself to the committee and in her article. Both asked for her voice and her truth. With renewed resolve, Mary began merging her preparation for the interview with her article. Voice became her focus. She peeled back layers of her experiences, striving to uncover the raw, unfiltered encounters with students that had molded her. Authenticity began to pulse through her writing, creating a narrative alive with challenges and triumphs. Yet, as she delved deeper into her account, she confronted something startling. There were narratives within her students' stories that she hadn't fully explored. Voices of empowerment weren't solely hers to wield. They belonged to each student who had inspired her. As she sought to capture these moments, the realization struck hard. The fear of inadequacy had held her back, shackling her to self-imposed limitations. She resolved to frame these stories, to ensure their relevance held weight beyond mere anecdotes. But would she have time to include them before the looming deadlines? The article and the interview drew perilously close, and Mary felt the urgent push to hone her narrative into a compelling argument. As she worked late into the night, fingers flying across the keys, she felt a shift in her spirit. The intertwining of her story with her students wasn't a sacrifice of identity, but a celebration of collective resilience. The invitation to collaborate no longer felt like an intrusion. It felt like an extension of herself, a path to deeper engagement. Just as clarity washed over her, a message alert interrupted her thoughts. Another email, this time from the committee conducting the upcoming interview. It was an outline of topics they would explore, including educational equity, the very focus of her collaborative project. Mary's heart raced. Was this a sign of alignment or a further complication? The impending conversation with the committee now seemed even more intertwined with her unfolding path. She took a moment to absorb this new information. Would she rise to the occasion, or would the pressure crush her ambitions? The time to act had come. Across both avenues, she could either solidify her voice or retreat into silence. The moment of truth loomed on the horizon, each choice rippling forward, intertwining her courage with her journey ahead. As dawn broke, golden light spilled across Mary's living room, illuminating the pages of her article scattered across the table. But rather than feeling invigorated, a sense of urgency clawed at her. Time was not her ally, and with each ticking second closer to the interview, the pressure mounted. She returned to her draft, scanning the words she had poured onto the page. The narratives she had begun to weave felt uneven. Some moments shone with clarity, while others lingered in confusion, struggling to find their place. It was evident she needed to refine her approach. To become an architect of her own story required not just passion, but precision. Sitting upright, she took a deep breath, centering herself. The commitment to authenticity was crucial, yet so was the responsibility to ensure each story was purposeful. This wasn't merely about filling word counts, it was about crafting a narrative that could stand right alongside her students' voices. A narrative that deserved a place among the innovations that molded her teaching philosophy. In her writing, Mary realized she also needed to confront her fears head-on. She had to dissect the moments that inhibited her, exploring the whispers of self-doubt that crowded her mind. Rather than shying away or allowing them to fester, she could articulate how they factored into her journey as an educator. After all, her students needed to see resilience, even in vulnerability. As she penned a section detailing a particularly challenging year, she felt the familiar heat rise in her chest. The discomfort reminded her of the students who had faced adversity but still rose to meet their potential. By drawing parallels between her vulnerabilities and those of her students, she created a tapestry of shared human experience. Yet, with each new paragraph, the looming committee meeting sat heavy in her mind. The list of topics they shared felt like an electric shock, a command to unravel her feelings and present them coherently. Educational equity, a topic so dear to her heart, now loomed like a mountain standing in the path of her ascent. How would she navigate this complexity in front of seasoned professionals? No more procrastination. She opened a fresh document titled Interview Strategies, forcing herself to plan. Fragmented thoughts needed to be molded into a comprehensive outline, key ideas and experiences she could draw upon when the questions came. Each bullet point became an anchor in the sea of uncertainty, a means to ground her in her purpose. But with every strategy outlined, she felt another wave of doubt crash over her. What if her responses weren't well received? The possibilities spiraled outwards, threatening to drown her in a whirlpool of anxiety that insisted on painting her as unworthy. She needed to reclaim her narrative. Mary shut her eyes, focusing on the journey she had walked to this point. All those nights devoted to her students, countless lessons crafted to uplift them. How could she allow fear to rewrite her story now? The voice inside her whispered, "You are more than them. You are worthy." Opening her eyes, resolve fortified her muscles as she began to revise her outline. But for every action, there was still an element of lethargy that clung to her. She needed a support system, a confidant to counter misconceptions woven into her psyche. As she glanced at her phone, Mary hesitated. Should she reach out to her former colleague, the very same person who had rekindled her ambitions? Would they see the potential she had begun to see in herself, or reinforce the very limitations she sought to transcend? The choice of reaching out echoed deep within, shining a light onto the path of collaboration she so desired but feared. She paused, weighing the decision carefully. If collaboration was a means to an end, as she set the date and time for their meeting, purpose kindled within her. This connection elevated her thinking. It reminded her collaboration could be a crucible for innovation, not a risk of exposure. She realized that allowing others to enrich her narrative was not a sign of weakness, but a demonstration of strength. With renewed vigor, she began to compose her narrative focused on the essence of her experiences, stripping down the layers of complexity she had once tangled herself in. Phrases flowed easily, illuminating critical incidents from her career that paralleled her personal growth. Around her, the golden light of the late morning began to encapsulate the room, wrapping her in warmth and hope. The complex tapestry of her teaching philosophy started to weave seamlessly with her personal journey, proof that she was ready to not just advocate for herself, but to inspire others as well. Yet still, a nagging uncertainty persisted. Would she be able to articulate her vision effectively? Was she prepared to field the tough questions that accompanied educational equity? As she faced the possibility of both inspiration and opposition, Mary knew she would have to harness all that she had prepared. The interview was set for the following week, and suddenly it felt more like a pivotal crossroads than an intimidating confrontation. Gripping her pen tightly, she sensed the lingering doubt, but also a burgeoning readiness, as if a key was turning within her, unlocking a door she had always stood before but never ventured through. The door creaked open, and beyond it loomed new challenges, her spirit steeling for what lay ahead. Would she emerge as the enlightened educator, ready to showcase her evolution, or would she waver in the face of scrutiny? The moment of truth was drawing near, and the stakes were greater than she had ever imagined. The days leading up to the interview became a paradox of fervent preparation and gnawing insecurity. Each morning, Mary awoke before the sun, striving to catch the stillness of first light, pen poised, ready to shape her thoughts into the articulate narrative she craved. The blank pages became a battlefield, a canvas for her ambitions and fears. Discomfort materialized at the thought of misrepresentation. She questioned if she could encapsulate her evolution into mere words. Am I even qualified to lead discussions on equity? The question ricocheted through her mind, unsettling her determination. Yet, with each fleeting instance of self-doubt, clarity emerged, reminding her of her journey, the resilience carved into her identity. She remembered weekends spent sifting through literature to deepen her understanding, late nights dedicated to refining lesson plans. These moments weren't just experiences, they were proof of her devotion to the field. They served as reminders of her potential contributions. Her preparation intensified, and she initiated mock interviews with trusted friends. Each practice session nudged her closer to self-acceptance, yet shadows of apprehension remained. Assertions of her capabilities clashed with doubts planted in her mind long ago, the fear of insufficiency. Addressing complex questions, the worry of failure to connect with the committee. In the realm of self-improvement, she learned that confronting these uncertainties required more than list-making. It necessitated a stare into the mirror of her professional self. In the subsequent days, Mary took to journaling her thoughts, laying bare her insecurities and reframing them into affirmations. I am not defined by past failures, but refined by them. This transformation of her internal dialogue buzzed with empowerment. She sketched diagrams connecting her values to her professional aspirations, a visualization that served as a compass guiding her through tumultuous mental territory. On the day before the interview, Mary sought solace in nature, stepping outside to absorb the resonance of the world around her. The sun broke through the branches, a clear reminder of brightness amid uncertainty. As she walked, pondering her thoughts, she experienced an awakening. It was not just about showcasing her qualifications. It was about embracing her vulnerabilities as a one-of-a-kind educator. This epiphany ignited within her an eagerness to connect authentically, to share the layers of her story rather than merely fit expectations. Returning home, the adrenaline surged through her as she prepared for the final touches. She meticulously organized her notes, arranging them in a way that captured her essence while allowing for adaptability in conversation. This time, she visualized not just responses to questions, but engaging dialogues, an exchange of ideas where she could be an active participant rather than a passive recipient. As she settled into bed, anticipation pulsated through her veins, accompanied by the remnants of her old foe, doubt. How will I respond if they push back? The thought loomed large, taunting her with its darkness. Yet, beneath that uneasiness lay a flicker of determination. The prospect of sharing her vision and insights felt monumental. She resolved then, she would not shy away from conflict. Instead, she would embrace it as an opportunity for growth. But as her eyelids grew heavy, another realization washed over her. What if the committee represented not just a platform for her ideas, but a mirror reflecting her fears back to her? Would she stand firm, or would she crumble under scrutiny? That query lingered like a pendulum, swinging between hope and anxiety as she drifted into sleep. Just as she felt the embrace of slumber, a fleeting thought emerged. Had she truly prepared for the storm of the interview, or would she find herself unmoored, struggling for clarity amid the tumult? The morning arrived with crisp energy, shadows of uncertainty trailing her steps as she dressed with purpose. Each choice of clothing felt symbolic, a shell protecting her from the world outside. As she readied herself, she focused on her mantra, "I am a catalyst for change." With her heart pounding in time with her thoughts, Mary stepped out into the day ahead, ready to confront her reflections, those specters of doubt making way for a more empowered self. Underneath it all, a new question fluttered. What if the conflict she feared would ultimately unveil the truth of her capabilities? Could the very obstacles energize her journey, revealing deeper strengths she had yet to discover? The threshold of her potential loomed large, waiting for her to cross it. Mary sat in front of her laptop, the screen reflecting the nerves she felt bubbling beneath the surface. This was it, the day of the interview she had worked so diligently to prepare for. Days of sleepless nights, palpable self-doubt, and intense introspection had culminated in this moment where she could step into her truth. As she took a deep breath, she revisited the key tenets of her educational philosophy, the core pillars she had crafted through her experiences: adaptability, equity, and empowerment. Each principle was imbued with the voices of her students and the legacy of her grandfather. She had come to understand that sharing her authentic self was not a vulnerability. It was a strength, a beacon for those who sought inspiration amid shadows of uncertainty. The interview was not just a test of her knowledge, it was an opportunity to share a narrative of resilience and transformation. Mary visualized her students as she sat in front of the camera, reminding herself that she had ignited sparks of ambition within them, and now it was her turn to ignite her own. Sitting up taller, she felt the energy course through her. She was beyond just a high school teacher. She was a pioneer, a trailblazer forging pathways in education. As the interview unfolded, she confronted questions that initially sent tremors through her. Yet each inquiry was an invitation to articulate the profound evolution she had undergone, and how it intertwined with her vision for educational equity. She spoke of the dynamics in her classroom, sharing poignant stories of students who had transformed from hesitant learners into enthusiastic seekers of knowledge. With each response, the initial waves of anxiety settled as clarity emerged. She delved into her theories about creating inclusive environments where every voice mattered, articulating how she intended to foster discussions that were rich in diversity. There, in that virtual space, Mary became what she had always envisioned, a confident advocate for empowerment, a vessel carrying the dreams of both her own journey and those of the students she cherished. As the interview wrapped up, she felt a growing vibrational energy, one that pulsed with the recognition of her capabilities. "Thank you for your insights, Mary. Your perspective is unique and compelling," one of the committee members remarked. The affirmation ignited a sweet realization. Her journey had been about her own overcoming, but it had also been about creating a space for her students' narratives to shine. That night, as she settled down, a soft wave of satisfaction washed over her. The interview had become a pivotal experience, allowing her to articulate not just her professional goals, but her authentic voice. For the first time, she felt that she had not only conquered self-doubt, but had also proven herself worthy of belonging within academia. It was a personal achievement, the manifestation of everything she had dedicated herself to overcoming. Weeks later, Mary received the email with the subject line stating, "Congratulations on your acceptance." Her heart raced as she opened the message, reading the testimonies of her growth and the thoughtfulness of her innovative ideas. She had achieved a solid confidence in her voice and been recognized for her competence. The validation of acceptance was now just a testament to her journey. She had broken free from the restraints of self-doubt and emerged with a newly established position as a leader in educational discourse. Mary reflected on the parallels of her initial hesitations, the shadow of doubt she had battled alongside the profound ambition in her heart. She had not only achieved acceptance into the doctoral program she desired, but she had also fostered a newfound ability to advocate for her students' dreams while crafting her own narrative. Standing before her classroom the next day, Mary felt a surge of joy as she shared her acceptance with her students. Their faces lit up with inspiration as she recounted her journey broke through the confines of doubt. She became a living testament to resilience, igniting the same spark she once ignited in them. Through the collective exchange of experiences, each student flourished as they recognized in Mary's story that their ambitions were equally vital. She had cultivated a transformation. Together, they had built a legacy of empowerment. Armed with the confidence she yearned to instill in her students, Mary's journey continued with purpose. It was no longer about proving herself. It was profoundly about creating space for others to recognize their worth too. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the energy flowing. Comment your reactions and theories about Mary's transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.